Clara's got away with words, stories flying just like birds. Guess who battled and won? Conversations and much fun. Tales from people with stories unique, secrets hidden and life's mystique. Every talk just makes you think, the show being over before you blink. Clara in conversation just for you.
Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to another podcast of Clara in Conversation with me, Claire Ford. Today on the podcast I am chatting with Jennifer Reoch, TV and radio presenter, model, events host and former Miss Scotland. Currently Jennifer can be heard every morning waking up Scotland on the brilliant Heart Breakfast Show alongside fellow presenter and old friend of the podcast, Des Clarke. Hello Jennifer and welcome to Clara in Conversation.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you as well, and thank you so much for agreeing to do it this afternoon. And I hope everybody enjoys this podcast and gets a little something from it.
Absolutely. No, I'm sure it'll be great. I mean, I had the pleasure of meeting you earlier this year, so I know you've got a brilliant chat. So I'm excited to get involved here in the podcast.
Absolutely, and we're delighted to have you as well. Now, Jennifer, you're probably best known for being the interviewer rather than the interviewee, so this is a bit of a departure for you. I trust that you're not going to be a difficult interviewee like that Gino D'Acampo when you and David Farrell had him as a guest on Live at 5 a few years ago. Although I am pleased to say, Jennifer, that there is no watershed on this podcast, so feel free to talk about men's private parts if you want.
Oh gosh, don't worry. No, I will hopefully be sweetness and light in comparison to Gino. He is so much fun to interview. He's a great guy and he knows exactly what to do to get a good laugh. So that was because we brought a fried sausage supper, I think, in, and he felt it. And yes, we asked him what he thought it was blindfolded, and he immediately had a feel of it and went, "Is it a penis?" And we were like, "Oh my goodness." We thought he might try and make it a wee bit funny, but we didn't know he would go straight in with an entirely ridiculous guess. So, yes, that was quite funny. He was meant to be in the Live at 5 setup. There was two sofas. So David and I were on one kind of presenter sofa facing the camera, and we had our guest to the sofa to our left. And immediately, as soon as we went live, he got up from his sofa and sat in between David and I. And we were like, what are we meant to do here? He is a total loose cannon, a live wire, all of those different things. But do you know what? He is a lot of fun to chat to. It's hilarious. Yeah, I've spoken to him since on Heart Radio. Well, actually, Des has interviewed him a few times. I've actually missed him. And he's as ridiculous as you'd expect. He's wonderful.
I heard that interview and it was absolute class. It was just so good. And during the Miss Scotland contest, when you were just 21 years old, Jennifer, you spoke about how you would love to pursue a career in broadcasting. Was this a dream you always had and that you actively pursued, or did it just happen more by chance?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to go into media, if I'm really honest. So, it was something I enjoyed doing. I really wanted to get into the presenting side of things, because I talk a lot, as I'm sure you're about to find out. I'm not very good at showing up, which is a skill I need to develop, but it's something I enjoy, and I love chatting to people, and I love getting out and about and exploring different activities with different people, getting their stories as we go. So it seemed like kind of the natural job to try and get involved in, and I've always been aware it's a very competitive industry, like so many others, and there's maybe not a direct path or route or a right way or wrong way to do it, which is exciting because it means hopefully there's a big variety of different people that get involved. But it can be challenging because there's not one exam, one path that you have to do to then definitely get into it. But I always wanted to try and evolve my communication skills and learn a wee bit more. So I studied law at university, but when I was at university, I also got involved with the Student Television Society there. So I was at Glasgow University, and it's called GUST, Glasgow University Student Television. And they were a good sort of source of inspiration that confirmed that I did want to get into television, and then sort of laterally obviously been in radio. But I kind of always wanted to do it, and I thought, why not? You got to go for it. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of perseverance. It's the cliche that you'll get a lot of no's, and you'll kind of have to develop a bit of a thick skin. And that has happened to me, like so many other people I know. But it's that kind of just keep on pushing, keep on working, keep on trying to improve and learn, and hopefully the right opportunities will come up. And I've been exceptionally lucky in terms of my timing and the opportunities, and I'm very grateful for the jobs that I've got to do.
Absolutely. And I'm loath to use that dreaded expression, Jennifer, that you were bestowed with brains and beauty, as some people hate that expression as they feel that the two things should not be mutually exclusive. Given that in the entertainment industry, some people are intimidated by personal attractiveness and others are intimidated by intellect. Do you feel as if you've been doubly blessed or doubly cursed? And no false modesty, please.
I mean, that's a really interesting question. I mean, it's something I've not spent a lot of time thinking about. Again, I'm kind of very grateful for the opportunities that I've had, and I'd like to think I've worked hard, particularly school and studying. But yeah, it's something that I suppose, especially school, came relatively easy to me. So no, I think I've probably been very, very lucky. I'd have to say I'm probably very blessed. It sounds like hashtag blessed, doesn't it? I don't want to mean to sound like that. But no, I think I have definitely been very, very lucky. And tried to just capitalize on that as much as I can. And try and work hard on it as well. It's about sort of keeping yourself sort of, I don't know, on top of what's going on in the world, and developing the skills. And a lot of it does sort of, I suppose, come to an element naturally, but then you've got to really hone it and learn from it and learn from other brilliant people in the industry. So yeah, I suppose that's a bit of a roundabout way of saying I feel sort of, I suppose, blessed for what I have been able to achieve, and what I suppose what naturally has come to me has been very lucky as well.
That's fantastic. And you obtained a law and French degree at university, Jennifer, as we've already discussed, but you obviously chose to go down a very different path in regards to your career. Having clearly worked so hard to attain such a prestigious degree, why did you then decide to turn your back completely on a life in the legal system? I definitely think you would have rocked a horsehair wig.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you never know. Maybe one day I'll go and get that wig on just for laughs, to be honest. I don't think I'll ever come into it in a legal capacity. But I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to go in the world of media when I left school, and I had considered a selection of degrees. And again, I was in a fortunate position where I had managed to get some good grades at school, and law seemed like a good degree to give you skills that are transferable. So it works on your language skills. So in terms of hopefully having a decent command of the English language, you can hone that a wee bit over the 4 years. It gives you critical thinking, analysing. It lets you just focus on different problems and arguments in a way that you maybe wouldn't if you didn't have that law degree. So I found that really useful. I did it with French. So I had the opportunity and was lucky enough to go and study in France in my third year at university. I didn't feel very lucky when I arrived, though, because I was sitting in law lectures in French and I had no idea what was going on, genuinely no idea what was going on. I was like, my French is not good enough for this. And I was crying and I wanted to go home, and I was very homesick for the first sort of few weeks. I didn't have anywhere to live. It was quite overwhelming, but I managed to stick it out, and I'm so glad I did. So those kind of experiences for me were huge, and they were so important in my life, and I think they have been quite formative for me going forward as a professional as well. So they've helped in the media world, having an insight into laws and to contracts. I'm a freelancer, so I have to sign contracts on a sort of job by job basis. I've got a decent understanding of what I'm reading into that. And I think it's kind of helpful, kind of going back to what you said. I think some people might have preconceptions of what someone who does modelling or has been Miss Scotland is going to bring to the table, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like having a law degree challenges that as well, and people maybe don't know exactly where to put you, what box you fit in. And I've always been quite pleased with that. I don't think people should be putting anyone in a box. I think you should be able to bring to the table different strengths and different scenarios. So you shouldn't be one particular person all the time. That seems crazy to me. But that's why it's nice to have those different, I suppose, conflicting, but I actually don't think they are, but two different areas that I hopefully bring a wee bit of interest in. And then I left the degree because I never really had the intention of being a practicing lawyer. So in the law field, you do your 4 years. I've got my LLB honours law degree from Glasgow Uni. And then if you want to become a practicing solicitor, you have to go in and do a year as a diploma before going into a practice to do your traineeship. So I left at the end of the 4 years because I felt I had learned everything I wanted to learn. I'd hopefully developed skills that would be useful in other areas of work. And I thought, right, it's time to get out of here. I genuinely never wanted to be a lawyer. I think there's really interesting areas of the law, but I think the degree trains you to work and think in a particular way.
Absolutely. And you make a valid point there about how you're not just one thing, you can be many things.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. It's an important lesson for people. Before I lost my sight, I actually wanted to study modern languages.
Oh, wow.
The thing there was obviously going abroad. I don't think I would have coped with that at all. Because
you would have. You definitely would have.
Yeah.
It's hard, and you would have been absolutely great. And everyone's got their own challenges, and everyone's got their own path. And I do think so many people have got so many different things to offer, and the world and society wants to pigeonhole you. They want to say, what are you all about? What do you do? What do you bring? What is your thing about life? And it's a very inarticulate way of putting it, but you understand what I mean in that sense of people just want to get you, and they want to understand you in a sentence or two, and nobody can be defined like that. And I don't think they should. I think everyone brings so much more to it. There are layers, there are different elements, and there's different phases of your life as well. So you bring different strengths at different times, and you can kind of grow from that as well. So I think that is, like you said, really important. And yeah, there's lots of adventures. I'm sure you could still have plenty of adventures for some European languages, and lots of like podcasts for learning them as well, and online options. It's a whole new world out there. We can try and do the rest of it a bit in French as well if you want, although my French is now terrible, Claire, terrible.
I'm the same as well. I'm so rusty. I've not done it for so long. So
I know, you forget it, don't you? It's tricky.
Yeah, it's definitely something I would love to revisit later on. Yeah, definitely.
En français, tout le monde doit parler français. See, that's it. I'm making mistakes already. We'll quit. We'll go back to English.
Yeah, definitely. And as you know, Jennifer, there is a debate in today's society about women participating in anything that may be construed as a beauty pageant. You went into the Miss Scotland contest with very definite objectives, and you have achieved them. With the knowledge that you have of Miss Scotland and indeed Miss World, do you feel that the Miss Scotland contests and beauty pageants as a whole are empowering for women, or do you feel as if they are out of date and belong to a different time in our cultural evolution?
It's a great question, and it's something I've spoken a lot about kind of over the years, and obviously everyone's got their own opinion and everyone's very much entitled to their own opinion. I can kind of speak from my personal experience, and for me being part of Miss Scotland and then going to Miss World, some of the best sort of things I've done in terms of being a young woman going into that environment. I think I was lucky. I was supported and surrounded by a lot of good friends and family who don't let you get caught up in a bubble or that kind of sort of, I suppose, slightly more fashion fabulous world. And my feet were firmly on the ground at all times, and I just enjoyed it for what it was. I think it's a great opportunity to meet other women. I found it quite empowering. It gave me confidence being on a stage, learning how to speak in front of people. I'd always sort of developed that at university, but then putting it into a different kind of entertainment format was really different, and it was quite exciting. And even from like a fashion and beauty point of view, like I personally don't see that as a big problem to celebrate like quite a diverse group of people looking at their best and feeling good and having that confidence in how they look, be it a nice dress, be it your hair feeling good, or I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if it's the main and only focus for somebody, then maybe you need to look at sort of broadening your horizons. But if it's a part of who you are and a part of life, then I personally have no problem with it. It's a lot of young women coming together to kind of have a good time and explore new challenges. So for me personally, becoming Miss Scotland, I had to do stand-up comedy, I had to do sports challenges, I had to do a dancing challenge. Like there's so much more to that than just standing on a stage about how you look. And yeah, sure, like your appearance is part of it, but it's definitely not the only part of it. And same with Miss World, like again, it's different for different people, different cultures. Some people take it more seriously in terms of a competition. I was more there for the experience than anything else. And that was brilliant for me. I met some incredible women. And again, it's like well-educated women with stuff to say who are there to travel, to meet new people. And I do think it's a nice like thing to do. I met girls, I shared a room with Miss South Africa. I became good pals with Miss Puerto Rico, and I was good friends with Miss Iceland, who I actually still keep in touch with. And I went over and saw her, and we hung out in Iceland for a bit, and it was great. So in terms of opportunities, amazing. I think as long as you like take everything with a pinch of salt, I think that's a good advice for life in general. Like just take it as sort of at value and know that it's there for the experience, then I think it can be a really good thing. I understand people have concerns about it. I would say the competitions have evolved. I think they need to keep evolving. I think strong, opinionated women need to be going into these competitions to say we're here to have a great time, but also we're here to stand up and be counted. And I think if you can do that, then it's a great platform.
And I think you've been brilliant in that you have been really promoting the whole thing. It's not just about how someone looks physically, it's about the person inside. And I think that's wonderful. It's something that we need to learn in life. It's about what you give as a whole. It's just such a great message. And it's brilliant that you have taken so much from it. And
thank you. Yeah, thank you. No, I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah. It's that's what I try to do. And I mean there's nobody's perfect. You make mistakes, I'm sure, and there's elements of it maybe people will still disagree with, but as an overall experience I find it very positive. And I think again, if you go into it with the right mindset, it can be a great thing. And I think when life gives you opportunities, you grab them, and I think it's important to be able to sort of, I don't know, just embrace that. So yeah, thank you. I'm so glad that that's hopefully coming across, because I very much believe in that there's something for everyone. And even on the Miss World stage, so just to go back to that, but it was a diverse group. Like there's a lot of people who are taller, smaller, slimmer, curvier, like dark hair, blonde hair, curly hair, straight hair. Like it was a real celebration of like young women in different, and yeah, did most of them like look, I suppose if you want to argue for desperately trying to say everyone looks amazing, they had put effort in. There was nice dresses, they looked after themselves, there was makeup and hair done great. But I don't think that's a negative thing. I don't think it should take away from them just being like successful and sort of ambitious young women as well. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. And can it evolve more? Can it get better? Yes. Is there room for improvement in most things in life? Yes. So hopefully it'll keeping up, or continue to try and keep up with society and our morals. But I think it's a good thing. I think it is. I think there's space for it.
And on that point, Jennifer, about Miss World, were your fellow contestants fiercely competitive with a win-at-all-cost mentality?
Do you know what? Generally not. No, I mean, as I said, I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, there's some countries and some cultures that take the Miss World competition, I suppose, traditionally a wee bit more seriously. So the girl who ultimately won it, Miss Venezuela, I think she had taken things pretty seriously, which was great. Like it's up to you how you kind of go into it. I was there for a fun time. I was there for the ride. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I had no expectations really going in. Which again for me was probably the right way to do it, as a healthier mindset, to just go and enjoy the opportunity. But But yeah, so there's certain countries like Venezuela are traditionally very good in that sort of pageant sphere. The Philippines also traditionally very good. So that kind of, there's different cultures that really go all in with the pageant world, whereas I kind of turned up like, hiya, how's it going? Let's see what there is. So different attitudes, and I think those attitudes then bring together different women. But honestly, I wish I had more like bitchy and catty stories for you, but like, yeah, it was awful. But I had a great time generally. I think it was weird because we were in London, it was quite a bubble, and you were in that bubble and you didn't get out for lots of freedom. Like you had quite a busy schedule and you weren't allowed to just go out for a wee wander in the shops or whatever at any time because you didn't have time for that. It was all quite a controlled environment. And as a 21-year-old who'd been to London on her own, being told you're not allowed to just go out is quite an odd set up. But then you've got some girls who are maybe 18, 19, and it's their first time in Britain. English isn't their first language. It's an environment you need to protect, obviously, everyone that's involved. So I understood that. But it was one of those things, it's a wild ride. It's totally mad. But I met some really good friends, and there were some brilliant women that are involved with that. And there still are, for sure.
And Jennifer, as we all know, personal beauty can be an ethereal and transitory thing. I recall seeing you many times prior to losing the bulk of my sight back in 2014, and I recall being struck by how aesthetically attractive you were. And even now, after meeting you quite recently with my limited vision, I can still see that you look fabulous. In fact, I have it on very good authority that you are even better looking now than what you were when you were Miss Scotland. And when you just narrowly missed out on the Miss World title. My dad's a beamer, by the way. As a woman who has been very hardworking and is up with the lark each morning, what do you do to maintain your outward beauty, Jennifer?
Oh, you're far too kind, honestly. I think to be fair, I've got an old laptop, so the picture quality now, if your dad has seen it, it's not good. It looks actually better because you kind of see too close up. You get 4K vision, you see the bags under my eyes, Claire, honestly. That's all very, very kind. And I think for me, I'm actually very low maintenance when it comes to any sort of beauty regime as such. I think I kind of believe in less is more. For me, that's just how I operate. And again, I've been lucky so far, but like I try and keep myself, it's almost a bit cliched, I hate saying it, but like trying to keep myself vaguely fit and healthy. So like I'm always been sporty. I've always loved sport, played netball, did some rowing for a while, did a lot of athletics when I was younger, still did a bit of running. Outdoors walking. I've been playing a lot of netball again back over the last 4 seasons. So I try and get out and do as much activity as I can. And I think that is good for your body and your health and stuff. So that keeps you kind of, I suppose, looking better than you would if you didn't get a chance to do that. The classics of like trying to keep hydrated, see if you drink water. And it's so cliched. I always like hate myself for saying these things, but genuinely trying to keep hydrated, trying to keep yourself like fit and healthy. A bit of moisturizer, I think, keep your skin a bit moisturized on your face. I'm really keen to be somebody who just kind of goes with the way that nature intends. Like I've got my wrinkles, I've got a fear they're only going to get worse, Claire, as well as you get older. And I absolutely respect people's decision to go for the aesthetic route and go and get their teeth done or their lips or their Botox or whatever, and that's all power to them. That's entirely their choice. For me, the way I am feeling right now, and listen, it could change. Maybe I will in 10 years' time feel differently, but I don't like my wrinkles. I don't love my grey hairs, but I'm really keen to just say, well, it's a privilege to be getting them, to be old enough to have experienced them, to have that there. So I'm going to try and lean into that as much as I can. And for me, I love seeing people who are in media embrace aging and look amazing for their age, not don't look their age. They look amazing for their age. So this is a bit of a tangent here, sorry, but just to take you down, like when we watched, the Friends reunion, like with Lisa Kudrow, Jennifer Aniston a few years ago now. And again, like each to their own, you do what you want to do. And Lisa Kudrow, for me though, looked the best. And I don't think she's done anything to her face aesthetically. She's got some wrinkles there. She's not 21 anymore, and that's wonderful. And I think that is brilliant. So kind of for me, it's about the kind of natural is best. Keep yourself fit, healthy, have a good diet, try and get sleep, which is not as easy as it seems when you've got a 5 o'clock alarm clock. 5 a.m. is not a time in the morning I'm enjoying seeing. But I try and get some sleep when I can. But I can see it in my own face, like the bags under my eyes. Honestly, I'm like giving my cheeks a wee slap just to try and keep myself awake sometimes. But yeah, it's all about just being comfortable in your own skin. And I think to circle back to it, I think less is more.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really wear any makeup anyway unless I'm going out.
And your skin is amazing. Like you look
Thank
great.
you.
That's the thing. You've got that glow, and I think it's that healthy glow where you look good. You've not overdone anything. It's fab.
Yeah, and that's it. It's just all about just embracing what you have and just go for it. I totally
100%.
empathise with the whole bags under your eyes thing because I'm a
Oh,
total night owl, so that's just me. So, but yeah, just
I
embrace
used to
it.
be, Claire. I used to be a night owl, and then just in the last year and a half, taking on the breakfast radio show at heart, as you said, with Des, and I've had to try and work out how to become a morning person, but I don't think it's possible. I can
Mm,
get up, I'm happy, I'm awake, I'm doing the show, but it's later on I'm tired. And trying to have a life in the evenings, like it's hard to balance both. So yeah, I think if you're an evening person, you're a night owl like you and I think you just always function better in the evening.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you certainly don't show it. But again, you've got to match the energy of
Oh
Des.
yeah,
So, and Des,
exactly.
so it's the kind of bouncing off each other kind of thing. So you've got to kind of try and do that and focus that. And speaking
Yeah.
of TV and radio, Jennifer, as you mentioned earlier on, you were part of student TV during your time at Glasgow University. And in 2014, your big break on television came by presenting the Riverside Show alongside David Farrell on the old STV Glasgow channel. Can you tell us how the opportunity arose for you to present on the Riverside Show?
Yeah, absolutely. I had graduated from uni in 2011. I'd been Miss Scotland from 2011 to 2012. And then I basically tried to get some work experience within the industry as best I could. So I managed to get 3 weeks work experience at STV as a kind of researcher, entry level position, researcher runner kind of stuff. I was working as a researcher in a program about Robert Burns for a few weeks, which was great. And I actually was lucky enough to get kept on for a few weeks after that. So just like a wee job for a few weeks, but that builds contacts, that builds basically confidence as well. And then off the back of that, I worked in production for maybe a year and a half. I was a runner, I was a researcher, I was a runner on Antiques Road Trip. I packed up all the antiques and wrapped them in bubble wrap and drove around a van in Scotland, taking you to all the antique shops and all the auction houses, which was great. But again, that's about building confidence, it's about making a network of people, about meeting basically producers and commissioners and people who are going to be taking on projects in the telly world. And I'd also, whilst doing the production stuff, I'd tried to build up a wee bit of presenting experience. So I had tried to do some work for, I think there was a few golf days that a company very kindly took me on. So I did some interviewing with them. I did some interviewing for the Miss Scotland like when I handed over my title, I hosted the show with a guy called Louis Spence, who's from Pineapple Dance Studios. He's a whirlwind of a man. He's got a lot of energy. So that was a lot of fun. And then I got to do I tried to build up as much experience presenting as I could. And yeah, then the opportunity I heard kind of through my contacts at STV by this point, someone said that they were looking to maybe open a new channel. So I found out that their applications were open and I put in a 1 minute show reel of me talking and I put in obviously like my CV and I got a call back to do a screen test, which was very exciting. So I went into the studio and David Farrell, I think, had already been chosen by this point. So David and I did some presenting, just a couple of links, and yeah, it worked out, which was an absolute treat because we got on like a house on fire. He's such a good friend. I think we were like brother and sister. We're like best pals, honestly. It's lovely. We really, really got on so well. And because we'd started out in our kind of TV journey together as well. So that was quite special. And we're still good pals today, which was great. But we got on pretty much instantly. And then I got offered the job. And I think I got offered the job in, I think it would have been maybe like oh, I don't know, December, January time, 2014. And then I was starting the job in March 2014, and that the rest was history. And I honestly couldn't have felt luckier. I loved that job.
I absolutely loved the show, and I loved what they did with the show as well, and the fact that it represented our area.
Yeah,
Obviously, STV Glasgow covered not just Glasgow but the surrounding areas as well. So I watched it every night, and it represented us as an area, and it was so authentic and true to us. But it was just fantastic, and I've
thank
said
you.
this in many previous podcasts as well. The importance of regional content on our TV screens and on
Yeah,
our radio is just vital.
I
And
agree.
I think you could definitely tell that you and David just hit it off right away, and you've had great chemistry, and the experiences that you have, I mean, they're probably ones that you'll never forget.
For sure. Yeah, it was a good team of people that had come together. And I think, kind of like you said, we all felt quite passionate about showcasing the West of Scotland to the West of Scotland, like reflecting it back to itself and showing all the brilliant things that are going on and the amazing people that live here. And that was something we were all really passionate about. And especially when it started out as STV Glasgow, it was really that perfect opportunity to just have a wee chat to people and find out what good stuff was happening. So that was great. And then when it evolved and became STV2, I mean, still just looking across sort of Scotland as best we could, because I do think sometimes Scotland can be a wee bit underrepresented, or people just think Scotland is beautiful lochs and hills and Nessie, and that's it. And you're like, oh no, like day-to-day life is so much more. There's so many brilliant, vibrant people, and there's stories to tell. So that's a very cool thing.
Absolutely, yeah. In the past, you have spoken about how big an influence Glasgow's very own Lorraine Kelly had on your fledgling career in broadcasting. A few years ago, Lorraine publicly announced in court that her much-loved TV persona isn't really her, and effectively she's playing a part when she sits in front of her TV screens each morning. I am always struck by how much you guys share about yourselves on the radio. For example, we know that you name your cars, that you don't share Des's love of cold baked beans and ravioli out of the tin, and that you're
No.
danglers. That's dangly earrings, by the way. Obviously, as a broadcaster, you can't be completely candid about every aspect of your life. So, how do you strike the balance between sharing quirky details about yourself whilst maintaining your personal and private life?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, all those things true. I'm a bit, I suppose I find it difficult to draw too much of a line, because the nature of radio is very personal, and it is very much about your life and what you're up to. And as a person, I'm a wee bit of an open book, to be honest. Even like talking to you now, to meeting anyone for a wee coffee or in your sort of work capacity, I kind of like I don't think I don't do anything massively controversial as far as I'm aware. So I mean I tend to just be quite open about how I feel or think about something. I also think that especially when you're talking, you can kind of try and clarify, and there's tone to what you're saying. I think sometimes, especially with like social media, some people can just take things out of context, or they hear one line or a headline and they take it in the wrong way. Whereas I feel like I'm very much in control of how I deliver things that I say, which makes it easier, because hopefully it just conveys how I feel or what I've actually been doing. So generally what I say is just me talking rubbish, and somehow someone's given me a job to do that, which I actually can't get my head around. I'm amazed, and I'm very, very grateful for it.
I absolutely love some of the things that you end up speaking about on the radio. It is just absolutely hilarious.
Nonsense. If it's genuine, it's one of those things that you don't always even expect it yourself. Someone else, like Des, will say, oh yeah, I like eating beans out of tin. I'll be like, what? Where did you come from? What is that even all about? We'll sometimes try and plan some of this stuff, like what is conversational, or maybe we'll say that on, like when there's a song in the studio, he'll say something or I'll say something, and we'll go, oh my God, I can't believe that. Let's have that conversation with everyone. So there's occasional planning for sure, but genuinely some of the moments that happen live just happen because we're having a chat, and that can be exciting and also sometimes terrifying, I suppose.
there's just such a brilliant chemistry with the two of you. It's just
Oh,
so
thank you.
magical. It is so magical on the radio, and I just want to keep listening.
That's
Um,
so kind, honestly. I'm so delighted to hear that. I mean, yeah, no, that's so kind of you to say, honestly. We go in and we're very grateful to be doing what we're doing. We're very lucky. We love what we're doing, but hopefully we're kind of taking everyone along for that ride. Like we are having fun, so hopefully you're having fun listening, and that's really what we're going for. So the fact that you seem to be enjoying it, it makes me really, really happy. So I'm so glad. Thank you. And thank you for listening. We love that. Honestly, it's great. It's like having pals. I know we can't always see each other and talk directly, but that's the vibe that radio is so great for. It's so personal. It is like having a chat with your friends, and you can get in touch with the radio. You can text us in, you can get involved in conversations, and that's part of the joy of it as well, which is a really nice thing to be part of.
and you can just tell with Wake Up and Win, where you're interactive with the audiences, that the two of you just really love interacting with us, the listeners. And I just think
Oh,
it's just so genuine as well and authentic, and that's what you want.
that's
You
so
want that.
nice. Thank you. Yeah, no, and it is. We love it. I think that's my favorite part is to talk to people and see what they've got to say. And everyone's got their own style and their own story and their own silly, quirky thing where you say that and you go, yeah, what? We did Wake Up and Win really near the beginning. And the letter was K, and it's obviously 30 seconds, 10 questions. Every answer's got to begin with the letter that we give you. And the letter was K. We said something you wear. And she said, knuckle duster. And we're like, yeah, it's the right answer. Obviously, after the quiz, we were like, do you wear a knuckle duster? She's like, no, I don't. I have no idea where that came from. Absolutely bonkers.
Oh,
But that's just where your brain goes. And that's kind of the beauty of that live environment as well. You just never know what's going to happen.
absolutely. And when you start corpsing, sometimes you just
Oh,
can't stop. And it's just so infectious when that happens with a radio presenter. It's just fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous. And we'll talk about that more later on in the interview. But on the subject of radio, being registered blind, Jennifer, as you can probably tell, I have a great love of radio. And I feel that radio has an intimacy to it that television often can't capture. With recent advances like audio description, it means that television is infinitely more accessible for blind and partially sighted people. As a woman who's been successful on both television and radio, do you have a preference with which form of media you work in? And what are the pros and cons to working in both television and radio?
great questions. I mean, first of all, I'm so glad that audio description is making things more accessible because that's just so important. And it's great for you to have a choice of what you're listening to, what you're engaging with. That's vital. So I'm delighted to hear that. For me, I think I always wanted to be in the world of television. So I started out there, obviously. I still work across that, maybe slightly less in terms of it's not a daily thing at the moment, but I am still involved with like the One Show and everything like that. So that's great. I like getting out and about. I'm someone who enjoys taking on different challenges. I did some filming for Sunday Morning Live, which is a BBC One show, and I did some snorkeling in a loch in the west coast of Scotland. And I'm not sure I'd have done that if I hadn't been filming it. And that's sort of part of the joy of it. So for me, TV is really kind of pushes you out your comfort zone, and you have to be prepared for kind of everything. But it's actually almost a bit more controlled. So it's a bit more concise. There is potentially an autocue if you're in a studio. There's more produced questions for stuff. It needs to be tighter. It needs to be more succinct. So actually, sometimes television is more set and radio is a bit more relaxed and flexible, and it does give it that personal element where kind of whatever comes into your head, you can say out loud, which is bonkers. You're just hoping it's something good. So it's a hard question to answer because I think my first love was telly, but I kind of have managed to like fall in love with radio a wee bit, and that joy of just getting to have the conversation. And I really love engaging with listeners. I think we kind of obviously covered it already, but that ability to almost get someone else involved then and there is really exciting. And that makes things a wee bit more dynamic and adds so many different layers to the show. So I'm kind of a bit of a cop out. I think TV is my first love and I really do enjoy it and I like going out and about and meeting people, but radio's got a real power and it's a lot of fun and you never really know what's going to happen and that's exciting.
I think there is pros and cons to both. I'm lucky in the sense that I had my sight, so I've had the experience of seeing things with sight on the telly, but now
Sure.
seeing it with the way that my sight is now blurred, and it's more visual TV, but there's still that magic to it as well because even though you can't really see it properly, you're still obviously visualizing. And the radio, as you say, it's just a conversation, and there's just that magic to radio. And Heart, I don't think there's a station that defines positivity more than Heart. And I think
Ah,
it is just
thanks.
it's just a wonderful station.
That's really
And
kind, and it is about being positive. It is about trying to, because life is hard. There's rubbish bits for everyone, and again, everyone's got their own challenges, and that's never easy. Everyone's got a day where like, oh, and that's why we're there to try and lift you up for those wee moments where you might tune in for 5 minutes, you might tune in for 5 hours, but we're kind of there to hang out with you, and we are kind of all hanging out together, and that's the beauty of radio.
Absolutely. And over the years you've been in broadcasting, whether it be television or radio, Jennifer, you've managed to build up a wonderful rapport with all the presenters that you have been teamed up with, like David Farrell, Ewan Cameron, Storm Huntley, Jerry Cassidy, and now it is evident with you and Des on Heart Scotland, as we've covered. You seem to be the common denominator, Jennifer, so it must be you that's easy to get along with. But
Love you, Claire, for that. Love you for that.
but just how important is it to have good chemistry with the people that you work with? And if the spark isn't there, it's easy to hide.
Great question. God, you're full of good questions. Honestly, these are amazing. And it's tricky. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I like chatting to people as a general rule. So I've always found getting on with the people that I've worked with relatively straightforward. And there's some people who are easier to get on with than others, for sure. I also think there's more natural chemistry. So sometimes it just clicks, it just works, and you go for it and you don't have to think about it. Other times you're maybe having to develop a different style of presenting to complement the person that you're working with. So it does vary for sure. But generally I've not had anyone like I really don't get on with to work with. So I can't answer that in sense like, can you hide it? If you've had a tough day, or you've kind of disagreed with someone on something, you're like, oh, I can't really be bothered doing this now. You have to kind of just get on with it. And that's where the professional element of the job comes in, because if it's a bit of oh, can't be bothered. When you go live, when you go on mic, you need to forget about that. You need to turn that off, and you're there for the show, you're there for the content, you're there for the listener or the viewer. So in that sense, yeah, I find it relatively easy to switch off like a bad day or maybe not getting on as well with somebody, but I've been lucky, touch wood, long may that continue. I've never had to work with anyone I really don't like, which I think would be hard, because especially the jobs that I've done, I've been very close quarters with these people. You're right beside them. You're kind of living in each other's pockets. Like I see Des for like at least 4 hours a day, Monday to Friday, like usually more, like 5 or 6 hours a day. Like that's a lot of time to spend with one person, and it's like in a small studio. And we've got our wonderful producer Stuart as well, but you're on top of each other. Like you're really having to, so you can't walk away. Like, in an office, you're like, I'm away for a lunch break. You're like, well, you can't do that. You've got to just power through. So I'm so grateful that I do get on with the people that I've worked with. So far, so good. But if you are having a rubbish day or you can't be bothered with them, because everyone annoys each other, I'm sure I've annoyed every single one of those people you just mentioned. But you kind of have to just take a deep breath and go, right, well, I'm not here to hang out with that person. I'm not here to be their friend. I'm here to do a good show. So then you need to work on that banter and that chemistry, and it kind of does come.
Absolutely.
It comes relatively naturally to me.
Definitely. And I think what's so good about it is it's almost as if you're mirroring, see, especially when you're co-hosting with someone, you're mirroring their energy. And I think it's always interesting to see that.
That's the thing. I think you made a great point again there, is it is about reading people. That's a huge part of my job. And I feel it's something that I I like to try and sort of, I suppose, analyze and work out the best way to talk to people and make people feel comfortable. And I really want to get the best out of people. I want to give people that opportunity to be the best they can be on air, be it TV, radio, when they're chatting. I want them to feel comfortable and good so that they come on and have fun. And that is sometimes about adapting your energy, adapting your style of question, and just getting a wee sense of the best way to make people feel good. And I do think that's a huge part of being a broadcaster is just kind of working out how that sits.
Absolutely, absolutely. And being in the entertainment industry, Jennifer, you will have your ups and downs. And in 2018, STV2 took the decision to fold the channel, which meant that your time working as host of Live at 5 very sadly came to an end. But in these moments, Jennifer, when the rug is pulled from under your feet, what goes through your mind? Do you fall back in your own innate belief in your talent and your inner resourcefulness, or do you fear trepidation for the future?
Oh, I mean, I was gutted when STV decided to change things and kind of get rid of the channel. Mainly because I absolutely loved what I was doing. So to have something that you enjoy so much as not an option anymore, that's quite hard. But in terms of, I'm not sure I'm one or t'other. I think you're definitely scared for the future. I was actually more scared that I wasn't going to get a job I loved as much, more than anything, which is a very selfish way to put it. But I was just like, I love what I'm doing. I don't want to ever do a job that I don't love as much as this. It's not as much fun. And that was definitely a fear for the future. Obviously, the world of media is fickle and it's scary. And I would challenge you to speak to anyone who's worked in the media for even a few years and not been dropped, not been changed. Like the plans have gone, you've been booked for a job and then all of a sudden last minute it gets cancelled. Like it happens to everyone because it is a fast-paced industry. It can be a wee bit, I think fickle is a good word for it. It's evolving and it's adapting to the mood at the time, and that can be different depending who you talk to as well. And different people are moving into positions of power and they want to bring their own stamp on things, their own personality, and that again can sometimes lead to shows changing. And that's one thing you can guarantee, I suppose, in life, but definitely in media, is that there will be change. And actually I think that's kind of helped me as a person to develop that awareness that things are going to change. I don't love change. I think lots of people don't love change. It's scary. But knowing that it's going to change and knowing you've got to accept that that's going to change and you can just get on with it is something that's quite powerful. For STV closing, I was gutted, but I think I was certain that I was going to work hard and I was going to try and find as many opportunities as I could. It's like I knew what I wanted to do and I knew I would kind of buckle down and do my best to get there. So did I definitely know I was going to get any work? No. Anytime you lose a job, anytime you finish a job even, like, and it's gone well, you're like, will I ever do this again? Will I ever get booked for this again? And the answer is, I got no idea. It's always scary. And that's part of I suppose the downside. See, when you're younger, it's not that scary because it's just exciting. Oh, new jobs, it's all changing. And now I'm about 35, so kind of getting into sort of, I suppose, more, I feel like an actual adult now, which is terrifying. I was trying to avoid being an adult, but it's happened. I don't know how. And when you become that adult, you start to become a bit more aware of like a job security thing. But I wouldn't change it for the world. It can be scary, but you've just got to keep chipping away. You know that you work hard. I hope I'm generally quite a nice person to work with, so that there's people I've worked with before that would give me the time of day, that would give me a meeting, that would maybe put my name forward into a room full of opportunities. They're the kind of friends you want. They'll say, oh, I know someone that can do this. Oh, I know Claire, she'd be great, get her in. Like, that's the kind of people you want to have hopefully made friends with. And I think Scotland, and as an industry in Scotland, it's quite a friendly place, I found personally anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I suppose it's the fear, but if you have an opportunity, you take it with both hands.
100%. I mean, I still have the fear now. I know things will change. Like, I'm in such a great position at the moment. I'm so lucky. I'm so grateful. I love what I do. I've got lots of different projects on the go, but things will change. Things will evolve. And I have no idea. You know, when people say, well, what are you doing in 5 years' time? I have no idea what my life is going to look like in 5 years' time, which is exciting because there's a whole world of possibilities. And it's also terrifying. And the older you get, it's more terrifying, I think, when you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know what's coming around the corner. So yeah, I'm scared now. I think everyone, especially in sort of contract work, it is always a wee bit nervous, but also quite exciting. And that's what keeps you doing it, because you're like, oh, who knows? This is exciting. Let's see what kind of where life takes us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's understandable to be nervous and overthink things. I've noticed that as I get older. I'm only like 28 going on 29 and I overthink things all the time.
You're still a young thing.
So, it's easier said than done, but
For
if
sure.
you're in the industry, it's hard. But you find a way to bounce back, and that's so important as well. So
You're so right. And I mean, yeah, exactly. Like it's diversifying, it's finding new avenues, it's finding new ways to do things. It's knowing that you're going to put the work in, which is so important. And like you said, it's just about kind of having that commitment to finding a new solution. There's going to be problems. You find those solutions, and I mean, I'm thinking I'm talking to the right person for that. You find solutions all the time. You make things work, and that's incredible. And that's the kind of resilient mindset that I think everyone would benefit from having, because there's going to be tough bits for everyone, regardless of your career.
absolutely. And we all get a bit starstruck from time to time, in particular when we come into contact with our idols. I'm so in awe of Beyonce that if I ever get the chance to meet her, I wouldn't be able to speak and I would probably pass out. But what about you, Jennifer? Has there ever been a time where you've been interviewing someone that you really like and you being starstruck has affected you acting professionally?
So I have been a wee bit starstruck maybe a couple of times, but thankfully I've not done anything too ridiculous. So phew, so far so good. Do you know the first time I met Lorraine Kelly?
Mm-hmm.
When I think I was Miss Scotland actually, and I met her and I was like, oh, this is so cool. She's real and she's the nicest person. What you see is what you get. She is genuine. She's nice. She gives you the time of day. She doesn't always need to, but she does take time for people, and she's got an interest in you. And I think that's really quite special. So I was excited when I met her, and I was very excited when I met Roger Federer, the tennis player.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Andy Murray live in the Hydro, and I got to go over and ask a couple of questions for STV, and then I got to go and have a quick chat to Roger, and I was like, oh my God, because I really quite like tennis, I like sport, I'm quite into that world, so I'd seen him play a lot. He's one of the best of all times. He makes it look easy. So I went and got a picture with him, and I was just like, oh, hi. Yeah. Oh, I bet you get asked to do this all the time. And I was like, what am I saying? Thankfully, nothing too bad, but one of those things where you're like, why is my mouth not stopping? Shh, stop talking, Jennifer. Stop talking. Because we did the interview like in a kind of press conference style. So there was lots of journalists, and then there was like Andy Murray, Roger Federer, Tim Henman all sitting up at the front. And I actually called Roger Rog. I was like, what an idiot. I was like, Andy, you've played Rod quite a few times. Do you ever, not have that competitive element to your match? And I was like, how did that happen? Because I've got to, like, I occasionally say Rod jokingly, like if you're talking to someone else, and I actually said it to his face. And I was like, oh no, that's so cringe. He's one of the world's best sports stars. And I'm like, hey, Rod, as if we're best pals. We're not. Although he was very nice.
That's fantastic. And it's great that obviously you've managed to not get too starstruck. I've been lucky prior to losing my sight and doing this podcast. If I ever met a celebrity, I wouldn't be particularly good in terms of I'd be so nervous. But it is the beauty of doing this podcast, is that you see the person inside and you realise that they're a human being. And
100%.
That's the beauty of this. And luckily, I kind of got it with Sean when I did my podcast with Sean, because I'm a massive fan of Sean. So yes, I was starstruck with him. Yeah. But in general, I think I've been okay.
That's the thing, though. You're developing that as you do this podcast. The more people you meet, the more people you talk to. I think you've made such a great point. You hit the nail on the head. Like, everyone's just human. And I think that's a great attitude to take into life. Like, when you are talking to people, you can have respect and you can be in awe and be like, your talent is amazing, brilliant. Like Beyonce, you can't deny she's incredible. Like, she's worked hard and she has absolutely owned it. She's also just a person. So you're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And I think that that attitude, even like in sort of work situations. And I know people can get stressed about bosses and hierarchy and that kind of stuff of like how things work. And I think you just need to remember people are people. And I think talk to them like that and you'll get on just fine.
And you seem to be a bit of an adrenaline junkie, Jennifer. As you mentioned earlier on, we've seen you flying an aeroplane, doing the Highland Swing bungee jump, and even climbing to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. But what is it about these dangerous pursuits that most people find terrifying that you're attracted to?
I don't know. I just love trying new things. I just like getting out, getting adventurous, get the heart going. I don't like scary things like scary movies, scary books. Not interested. Don't want people getting murdered. Don't like any of that stuff or violence. No thanks. But I'll jump off and do a bungee. I did a skydive for my 21st birthday as well. I asked my mum and dad to give me a skydive. So I did that. I don't know if I'd be more scared to do it now than I was then, but yeah, I did a skydive. I like it. I like I have kind of the list of things to do. It definitely makes you feel alive. And I'm kind of one of those people that really just wants to experience as much as I possibly can in life. And that does usually involve doing some crazy things. So I'm kind of up for it.
You're definitely braver than me. I couldn't do that stuff.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could.
So
I totally understand it. It's scary. Don't get me wrong. I don't go up there and think, woohoo, I was scared. But I think pushing through and doing it anyway is quite a satisfying feeling if you can. Mm-hmm. That kind of gives you some of that control back because you're like, no, I'm going to do that. And you're taking control of your fears. And I find that useful. And I do actually think for me, again, I don't know, I always fear I become a bit cliched sometimes with these kind of things, but I do think it helps in other areas of your life sometimes because you're like, well, I did that, so I can do this. I've jumped off that, I can do that. I've got to the top of Kilimanjaro, I can do this. Like it gives you that extra wee kick to go, stuff is hard, you can do it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's a great attitude to have. Just go for it. Doesn't matter. Just go for it and try it.
Yeah, I'm all for that, honestly. I think the more experiences you can get, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one thing my dad, it's always something that he's been proud of is the fact that didn't do a skydive, but he jumped at an aeroplane. And he always talks about that every year when we watch I'm a Celebrity. That's always the thing that he always says about the jumping at an aeroplane and how it was just an amazing experience. It was scary, but it was amazing as well. So it's definitely something that I genuinely wouldn't be brave enough to do, but anybody.
But that's okay. Everyone needs to find their own level or their own thing, their own skydive, their own jump, their own bungee. Like you find what kind of excites you and pushes you, and then that's you kind of getting the same rush. Like not everyone has to do the same thing, but it is, and your dad has done a very good job, so tell him congrats. That's good.
Thank you very much. And on that subject of skydiving, Jennifer, don't tell Des I said this, but I think it would be wonderful to use your idea for next year's Globals Make Some Noise to raise vital funds for this great charity. We've all been enthralled by Des overcoming his fears by abseiling 165 feet in the air down the Forth Rail Bridge, as well as walking the equivalent of 2 back-to-back marathons in less than 24 hours from Inverkeithing to Glasgow. I think that there is a great appetite for you to utilise your newfound skill, as we've spoken about, of flying an aeroplane, and for Des to join you up in the clouds. But the only thing is he would have to do a parachute jump. I think that would be I think that would be a killer idea for next year's challenge. What's the latest on it, and are you still up for it?
I think saying killer near that challenge is not something Des Clarke wants to hear. I'll tell you that for free. I think he might not thank you for that. You could give him the good news. I'm keen. I think it sounds great, but I'm not sure Des will be all up for it. Do you know what? When I flew the plane, Des came up on it and wasn't that scared, which I was amazed by because he was obviously telling me he was so scared of heights and he's scared of falling. So chucking him out a plane is maybe not the best idea. I feel like that might be a step too far, but we've got a bit of time to work on him. So you let him know, Claire, and I'll let him know. And between the two of us, we might be able to convince him.
Well, one thing's for sure, in the previous podcast, he freaked when I suggested that to him. He was not pleased at
Like,
all.
no, 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 no. I think it is a real fear. I mean, he really did work with a therapist and like over months, and he tried to build up to it. So for him to get over and do that abseil was real and really impressive. In all seriousness, I don't know what the challenge will be next year. I'm definitely up for doing a challenge, if one comes up. But also Des is great at taking them on, and he's got sort of lots of, well, he's got the fear of heights, which then makes a lot of those challenges bigger. Whereas an abseil, I've done quite a few abseils at the risk of sounding like a big loser. Yeah, I'm really cool. I've done an abseil. I don't mean it like that. I've done it a few times because I enjoy it. So it's probably less of a challenge. If I did an abseil, I'd be like, yeah, that was fun. Can I do it again? It's got less jeopardy because he's actually genuinely terrified. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. No definite plans yet, but I'll let him know that you're keen to chuck him out a plane.
I think it would just be brilliant to see you take on a challenge as well. So
yeah, we'll work on that for next year. We'll get you on a walk or a plane with us, and we'll see if you can take it on too.
absolutely. And now we're on to the section of the podcast, brand new section of the podcast. You're the first person to ever experience this, and we call this the quick fire round.
Lovely.
So, your first question, Jennifer, do you have any tattoos or piercings that we should know about?
None apart from my earlobes. I like earrings, but that's it. I like my danglies, remember?
I still think that was one of the funniest things on the breakfast show was the woman phoning up, I'm a dangler and I'm proud of it. I just thought it was one of the funniest things I've ever
Absolutely
heard.
Bonkers. That's the beauty, as you said, of radio. Yeah.
And is there anything about yourself that we don't know, Jennifer, that you want to share?
Honestly, I talk so much, I've forgotten what I've not said. I think I've literally said everything, which is absolutely bonkers. I'm sure I've said it before, but probably fun fact, I did like a space school thing back at school. So I went to NASA and met Gene Kranz, who was the mission controller of Apollo 13, and I met him in the Apollo 13 control room, and I watched the Apollo 13 movie from the control room that it actually happened in. So that was in 5th year at school, so a while ago now, but that's probably a fun fact. What else? Not really. I felt like I did the London Marathon when I was Miss Scotland, and I've never been so ill, would never do one again. Brutal. Not a big fan. Genuinely nothing interesting has sprung to mind here, which is terrible.
I think that is so cool.
It was amazing.
Fact, yeah, absolutely. And doing a London Marathon, to say that you've done that, even though you obviously are saying that
it was so hard. Muscles that I didn't even know I had were hurting. I was like, how is this sore?
But to say that you have completed that's incredible in itself.
Got the medal to prove it, so we're good.
Absolutely. And going back in the past, Jennifer, what would you say to your younger self about the entertainment industry? What advice would you give your younger self?
Ooh. Honestly, it's a great question, and I'm not entirely sure what I would say. I mean, I think it's one of those, just try and enjoy it. Like, don't be stressed about it. I think that's the good advice for life. It's much easier said than done, but try and enjoy every moment, because there's going to be some brilliant experiences along the way. Try not to think about too much of the future and just enjoy the present.
And we've kind of touched on this earlier on, Jennifer, but where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
I have absolutely no idea. That's the honest truth. I don't know. I think career-wise, I'd love to still be in media. I'd still love to be presenting as the right opportunities come up. Dream job, I think, would be to work on a show like The One Show, maybe in the studio, doing some of the interviews there. If I can do a wee bit more of that, that would be incredible. I think there's lots more adventures and hopefully lots more shows to work on. And also in terms of sort of personal life, I've still got plenty of places I want to go and travel to. more planes to jump out of and bungees to do. So just kind of keep working through having a good time. And again, I have the joy and the privilege of being able to have a good time whilst I've been working. So if I can continue to enjoy my work, then that will be me pretty happy, to be honest, I think.
Fantastic. And we like a bit of toilet humour here on Clara in Conversation.
Love
So
it.
I would love to know what your porn star name is. And for anyone who doesn't know, it is the name of your first ever pet and the surname of your mum, your mum's maiden name.
I think I would be Curly. Curly was my wee guinea pig. Because she had curly hair. So Curly, my mum's maiden name is Spooner. So I'd be Curly Spooner, which is slightly terrifying.
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. Well, Jennifer Reoch, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. And thank you so much for being my guest on Clara in Conversation.
It has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Jennifer can be heard waking up Scotland on the wonderful Heart Breakfast Show every weekday morning from 6:30 to 10 o'clock alongside Des Clarke on Heart Scotland. Jennifer can also be seen regularly on television as well as hosting events and award ceremonies in the circuit. Jennifer, it has been an absolute pleasure and thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been brilliant. You're a top class interviewer, Claire.
Thank you very much.